Welcome to the Fox 56 Football Feast, presented by Greenbox and Elder Law.
Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for tuning into the Fox 56 Football Feast. I'm Dan Rieffer. That's Brian Milam. Tonight, we're discussing Saturday's annual Governor's Cup meeting between the Cats and the Cards. We'll hear from Mark Stoops and Louisville head coach Bobby Petrino.
Plus, we will get the thoughts of those who have been covering UK football all season. Lexington Herald leader columnists John Clay and Mark Story. Also the Courier Journal's John Hale, SECCountry.com's Joe Masato.
Then, Brian, we're going to preview the high school football state semifinals from Class 1A all the way through 6A with the Herald Leader's high school sports reporter Josh Moore. He'll be joining us here on the set here in just a little bit.
That's right, and we will wrap things up tonight with a look ahead to Sunday's Bengals-Browns matchup. Hey, this isn't called the football feast for nothing. Pass the tryptophan.
Of course, we begin with UK, U of L. Here are Mark Stoops' thoughts on the Cards.
They're still a very good football team. Really, when you have a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback back there behind center, puts a lot of pressure on you. He's a fantastic football player. He creates plays all over the place. He's a dynamic guy. He does a very good job. I think he's throwing the ball. He's always thrown the ball good in my eyes because he's always been so dangerous. He's got such good touch on it. But he's definitely, you could just see from experience, just sitting in back there and distributing the ball. When he has time, he does an excellent job there. Of course, he ad-libs and, designed run plays, whatever it is, he can put a lot of pressure on you.
Well, you heard Stoops say Louisville is still a good football team. I mean, what else is he going to say? It's not been the year Louisville fans had hoped for. Obviously, this team started out 4-1 with that lone loss coming to defending national champs Clemson. Then the wheels kind of fell off with back-to-back losses to NC State and Boston College. The Cards beat Florida State, but then turned around and lost to Wake Forest.
And that's where the fan base kind of got off track. Louisville did bounce back, though. A pair of decisive wins against Virginia and Syracuse heading into Saturday's game with the Cats. Defense has been the concern for the Cards all season. Yeah. They're allowing 28 points per game, UK allowing 27.2. And the Cats are actually worse when it comes to total defense than the Cards, giving up 413 compared to 391 for the Redbirds.
Offensively, U of L has better numbers than Kentucky. The Cards are putting up 38.6 points per game and more than 560 yards of total offense. That ranks third nationally, by the way. Conversely, the Cats averaged 26.5 points per game, 352 yards of total offense. Here now are Louisville head man Bobby Petrino's thoughts on the game.
Looking forward to our preparation for Kentucky. They got a good football team. They're playing good defense. They've got a really good running back that we have to be able to tackle and defend. And the quarterback always does a good job being able to throw it and also make plays with his legs. So be a good week of preparation, good challenge for us, but certainly we're looking forward to it. I mean, when you win, it makes life a lot easier. No question about that. It's a rivalry game. There's a lot of them being played this week. I think that's a, great thing about now having it at the last game of the year is it's rivalry weekend. So, you want bragging rights and you want to be able to use it in recruiting. And, it's something that certainly is a big game for us.
Last year's game gave us one of the all-time moments in this rivalry with the Heisman Trophy winner Lamar Jackson, you just saw fumbling it late to allow UK to drive down and kick a field goal to win it.
Yeah, and like last year, Lamar Jackson's numbers, just silly. He's rushed for 1,200 yards, 1,287 yards, 17 touchdowns, 7 yards a carry, 117 yards rushing every Saturday night. It's amazing.
Through the air, Jackson's thrown for 3,273 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. He's completing nearly 60% of his passes for about 300 yards a game.
That's just not fair. But because Louisville is just 7-4 this year, Jackson might not even get invited to New York as a Heisman finalist. That's ridiculous in itself. But when you see the national media discussion on this season's Heisman candidates, Jackson's name isn't coming up. Mark Stoops thinks that's a pretty big mistake.
I said it in here in my Monday press conference last year that I thought he was the best player in the country. And certainly I don't watch everybody all the time. And I know there's some guys playing some exceptional football, but he absolutely should be in New York because you'd be hard-pressed to find a more talented guy than him.
Well, I could not agree more. I realize the Heisman seems to be an award for the best player on the best team or one of the best teams, but who is the best player in the country? To me, it's still Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, this is not the days of Paul Hornung on a 2-9 Notre Dame team, the best player ever to be on a losing team. And now you have Lamar Jackson. You know, UK just met up with Georgia. Best running backs in the country.
Yeah.
Now you get the best quarterback the week after. It's a tough 2 weeks for UK.
No, absolutely. All right, coming up, we're going to hear from the Lexington Herald leaders John Clay and Mark Story, as well as the Courier Journal's John Hale and SECCountry.com's Joe Musato when the Fox 56 Football Feast returns. Welcome back to the Fox 56 Football Feast. We continue to preview the Governor's Cup, which is a noon kickoff Saturday from Kroger Field. And Mark Stoops started this week by dropping some bad news about C.J. Conrad, who suffered a foot injury against Georgia that has ended his season. Conrad was scheduled to have surgery back Tuesday.
But UK is in great shape when it comes to the other tight ends, right? Greg Hart, Justin Rigg, or so we thought. Stoops revealing those guys are pretty banged up also.
We feel good. Unfortunately, Justin got hurt in the game too. He's in a boot. He has an ankle injury as well. So, and Greg is he's played in a cast on one wrist for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then the last couple of weeks he's been in the other wrist. Has been in a cast during practice. So, hopefully he'll be healthy this week.
Well, that's a big deal when you think about how many times Eddie Grant or Mark Stoops has been asked this season about the tight ends, particularly C.J. Conrad, and why he's not more involved in the offense as far as being thrown to. But many times their answer has been Conrad and those guys have been outstanding in the run game and a big reason for some of Benny Snell's success. So that's where UK is really going to feel the effects of the injuries to the tight ends is in the run game, I believe.
Oh, no doubt. And you know the situation is serious when Stoops says they even tinkered with the idea of using guard Nick Haynes' tight end. They put number 89 on him. Stoops said that's unlikely, but gives you an idea of the challenges that UK could be facing this weekend at tight ends.
All right, now let's hear from several of the writers who cover Kentucky football for some of the storylines we have heading into Saturday's renewal of the Governor's Cup rivalry.
Well, I think a big thing that's different from last year, Kentucky went into the Louisville game off a win over Austin Peay, which physically is not as demanding as maybe playing a game at Georgia. Conversely, Louisville went into the game last year off a bitterly disappointing loss in Houston that knocked them out of, they were very much in the college football playoff race going into that game, and once they lost it, they never seemed the same the rest of the year. So I think that is the big difference. I don't know that the game, quote unquote, sets up quite as well for Kentucky as it did a year ago.
Well, I think Lamar's going to get his either way, so I think Kentucky's got to slow everybody else down on Louisville's defense, and they've got to score points, or Louisville's offense, right? And they've got to score points. I don't think Louisville's defense is very good, and if they can do the blueprint they do every game when they win, and Benny Snell has a bunch of rushing yards, and Steven Johnson makes good decisions, and they control the clock, I think they got a really good chance. But if it's a shootout and they're scoring quick, I don't know that Kentucky can keep up in that game.
I don't think Louisville's quite as good as they were last year. They've struggled defensively, although I think Lamar Jackson's probably had a better year this year maybe than he had last year when he won the Heisman. I think Kentucky's in a little different place because they beat Louisville last year. Last year they had already clinched the bowl game, but they didn't have that big win. And to win at Louisville should give them some confidence this year going up against Louisville. So I think those are some of the differences.
I talked to Benny Snell after the game, and he kind of pointed out Kentucky's 3-0 after losses. So it kind of shows like the resiliency of this team, but at the same time they haven't played a team like Louisville coming off of that loss. So really big game in that aspect.
You saw the interview after the game, after the Syracuse game with Lamar Jackson saying he had thought about this game literally for a full year. So I would expect him to be extremely focused. To me, the key to the game this year as last year, I don't know whether Kentucky can really stop Louisville, but last year they turned them over 4 times. Lamar threw 3 interceptions, although one of them was on the Hail Mary, and then had the very crucial fumble that I'm sure is what the play people remember from that game forever. If they can turn them over again, then I think Kentucky has a chance. The one thing that I think Kentucky, they do have actually better wins than Louisville. Both teams are 7-4, but Kentucky has beaten 3 teams with winning records. And Missouri now has a winning record. They've beaten Southern Mississippi and South Carolina, which turned out to be a very good win, a road win. Louisville's the only team they've beaten with a winning record is Virginia. So, in that sense, Kentucky, has the better body of work.
Well, one of the points, Brian, that you heard made there is that UK in recent years has played a lesser opponent or had a bye entering the Louisville game rather than coming off a road game at one of the top teams in the country in Georgia.
Yeah, and one of the other factors that we heard, Louisville and Lamar Jackson, they have the motivational edge going into this one with what happened last year, so there's a very different feel on both sides than there was probably this time a year ago.
Yeah, obviously that win for UK last year was huge in many ways. I mean, recruiting for one, but also fans could feel a lot better about the season. That loss in the bowl game really wasn't a big deal since the regular season finale delivered a victory over the Heisman Trophy winner. So what does this year's game mean in terms of grading the season for UK fans?
Yeah, I wrote, in the Herald Leader and online at Kentucky.com that I think how the fans view this season, Kentucky season, depends on this game. If Kentucky beats Louisville, they'll have an 8-win regular season, which is the first time that's happened in quite a while. It'll be one more win than last year, but even before the bowl game. I think people will see it as a definite step forward to go 8-4. If they lose, they're 7-5, just like they were last year going into the bowl game. You can make an argument the schedule was actually tougher last year for Kentucky than it was this year. Plus, they would have had the win over Louisville last year that they wouldn't have this year if they lose the game. So I think a lot is riding from a perception standpoint, like you said, on this Kentucky season going into this Louisville game.
I get where the fans are coming from. This kind of the ceiling for this program really since 1984 has been 7-5. So the fans are understandably yearning for better in a way that's not fair to the coaches and players now because they're not responsible for anything other than the games they've played in. But I think it is, I get where the fans are coming from and why it's so important to them to do better than 7-5. I mean, I think if you've lived through the Kentucky football experience for these many decades, that's an understandable feeling.
Well, any season in which Kentucky can claim a win over Tennessee and Louisville and finish 500 in the SEC and end the year in a bowl game has to be viewed as a success.
Yeah, and in this particular year, beating Louisville would give Kentucky 8 wins in the regular season. That has not happened since 1984, a benchmark not lost on Mark Stoops.
I think it's big because it's important to our players, it's important to our fan base, and it's a rivalry game, and there's a lot at stake. 8 wins, I don't think has been done in 33 years. That means something to me. I think, as I've mentioned in here many times, you keep on trying to knock down as many doors as you can, and the fact that we had, back-to-back 500 wins in the SEC is, again, we want more. It's easy to look back and get the what-ifs. That's human nature. I understand that. But I am proud of some of the things we've done, and getting 8 wins is another step forward.
Absolutely. Okay, time to give our predictions. I think this game follows the same script as last year. High scoring, probably in the 40s again, and close late. I think Lamar Jackson has a big day, and as much as he wants to win this game, he's done all he can do to help Louisville win all season. But the Cards have had letdowns in other areas. Kentucky has shown resilience all year. I think we see the same Saturday. UK finds a way to win in a game decided by 3 points or less.
Well, I've got the Cats 38-34. I mean, it's pretty close to last year. No last-second field goal. Cats take care of business.
All right, next, the Lexington Herald Leaders. Josh Moore joins us to preview the high school football state semifinals when the Fox 56 Football Feast returns. Welcome back to the Fox 56 Football Feast, and now we turn our attention to tomorrow's high school football state semifinals.
And joining us to discuss the matchups is the Lexington Herald Leaders, Josh Moore. Thank you for stopping by, my man. How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's football season.
That's right.
Gotta love it. We start in Class 1A, and there you have defending champ Beechwood traveling to face Campbellsville, which is a pair of 1 seeds along with Pikeville visiting Raceland, which features a matchup of 2 seeds. The winners will meet a week from Friday at 2 o'clock at Kroger Field. All right, Josh, how do you see the Beechwood-Campbellsville game going?
I think Beechwood's going to have a good old time on Friday. I think Campbellsville, they've done a good job of, getting here, and I think they'll enjoy it, but it's hard to, you can't pick against Beechwood this time of year.
Right. Pikeville and Raceland. Pikeville won a state title just a couple of years ago.
They sure did, and they did it with a quarterback who's no longer on the team because he's dedicated himself to basketball. But quite an accomplishment. I mean, for them to get out here, I think I'll pick them to come out of that game.
In Class 2A, defending champ Christian Academy of Louisville is at Mayfield. Danville travels to Glasgow. Winners meet Saturday, December 2nd at Kroger Field. Defending champs, or do you go with the Redbirds down in Mayfield?
I think you go with those Cards. The first, that's a fun matchup. That could be a finals matchup a lot of years, and if depending on how the brackets are set up. So I think I take Mayfield there.
And then you go unbeaten Danville going out there to Glasgow. Danville has been strong.
Oh yeah, I mean you talk about they lose a quarterback, and I think replace him with a guy who stepped in and filled in as well as you could possibly ask for in Zach Thornton. Then you have a guy like DeMarie Van Cleve
he's pretty slow.
Incredible. I mean, this kid's so fast. If he was 3 inches taller, everybody would be all over him.
Right.
And so I take Danville. Glasgow, again, another team that's had a solid season out west, but I think Danville stays undefeated.
Now let's go to Class 3A and stay there in Titletown. You got Boyle County going to travel to Elizabethtown. Corbin and Central in the other game. The winners will meet Friday night. That's the Friday night state championship game next week at Kroger Field. But tomorrow night, Boyle County maybe has its best defense since Chuck Smith has returned and back in the semifinals for the first time since they went unbeaten in 2010 to win it all.
I think they're going to be back in the finals next week at Kroger Field, and that's going to be a fun game.
Yeah.
Again, that E-Town team, they've only lost to Cal. They're in 2A, so they've done well. I just think Boyle County's rolling. Titletown's back, baby.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, Corbin and Central. Corbin's got to make the trek to 15th at Muhammad Ali. Belfry found out it's not an easy place to play.
I think Corbin may find that out too. I'd like to pick the Red Hound, being a Mountain boy, but Central. I mean, they came right out of the gate this season, a new head coach, but two stout defensive performances, and they found the offense now. I think they've scored 50 points in the last 7 games or something. I mean, so go Yellow Jackets.
Well, let's go to Class 4A. We've got Collins and Franklin Simpson. Johnson Central at Wayne County. The winners play Saturday, December 2nd. Last year, Wayne County made the long trek to Paintsville, and it was over before they got off the bus. Do they have some payback this year?
I think not. I'll roll with the defending champs until they say otherwise. They lost to Ashland Blazer in the regular season. A lot of fumbles in that game. Came back and proved that they weren't going to do that again last week.
Do you like Collins or Franklin Simpson to be against Johnson Central there?
That may be the game I know the least about as far as the participants in it. Collins has played great, been actually a team that's won a state title. Franklin Simpson's in the finals last year. Didn't start the season strong, but I'll say go with the Panthers.
All right, let's go to Class 5A. Covcath been the number 1 ranked team in the Cantrell rankings. So about, halfway through the season, they took over that spot. And then Covcath takes on South Warren, which knocked off the defending champs in 5A, Bowling Green. On the other side, you have the Cinderella of the dance, Harlan County, visiting Madison Southern. Harlan County, the only 3 seed left in the state semifinals, and have won 3 road games to get there. So now they got to go and try to win a 4th against Madison Southern. But let's start with Covcath South Warren. That's a matchup of Titans right there.
Oh, absolutely. And Covcath, I think, is going to have a probably in South Warren's run here in their first year in 5A, but what a run. They take out Bowling Green last week, but Covcath's just been so strong. I mean, you're a strong team if you usurp Trinity in the overall Cantrell ratings, and that's something they did this year.
And Harlan County has won on the road 3 weekends in a row, but they take on a Madison Southern ball club that has literally gone from rags to riches.
Yeah.
John Clark took over this team a few years ago with 19 players. Now he's got them in the state semifinals.
And he'll have them in the state championship game next week. You have a team that is just, you lose Damian Harris, you think they're going away. No, they've got a guy, Carter Smith, one of the smartest, probably the smartest football player in Kentucky. He'll carry them to the finals.
Landon Stacy, the quarterback, he's not bad either.
Oh, right? yeah, absolutely not.
All right, let's go to Class 6A, and you've got Trinity at Central Hardin, and then Scott County at St. X. And that's the only game. The Sunday, the state championships at Kroger Field wrap up Sunday with that championship game at 2 o'clock. Who's going to be in it, Josh?
I know one team will be in it.
If Central Hardin's there, I'll eat a shoe. I think, I hope they make a lot of money off that gate, because that's going to be, I'm glad they get to play that on their home field. That's fun, but Trinity's going to be, I think most people will think Trinity will be there.
But Trinity's been allowing 4 points a game. against Kentucky competition this year. Yeah, and they play the likes of Milam and St. X and them.
Yeah, and every team that Trinity play or Central Hardin played in that of that caliber, they didn't fare too well against this year. So
now, Scott County, do they have a shot? They played a tough schedule this year. They played Cincinnati's powerhouses. Can they pull it off?
I caught some heat all year for voting Scott County second behind Trinity in the Class 6A polls most of the year, and I think they'll prove me right this week when they go to St. X and beat them.
I like the sound of that a lot.
All right, so you've got Scott County and Trinity in a rematch of previous year's state championship games. Hey, thanks so much for coming by here. Hope you've had a great Thanksgiving. We enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Josh.
We're moving on when we come back to the NFL. A look ahead to Sunday's Bengals-Browns game when the Fox 56 football feast returns. Welcome back to the Fox 56 football feast. We wrap up with the NFL and an AFC North Division rivalry known as the Battle of Ohio.
The Bengals host the Browns Sunday at 1 o'clock. We bring back Herald leaders John Clay, who really likes this ball game.
The Bengals, they're 4-6. They're probably out of the playoff race. But I think if you're a Bengals fan, you're looking to next year. You're looking to see some of the young guys are playing. Who's going to be your coach next year? Marvin Lewis in the last year of his contract. If they continue to have a losing season, will they bring Marvin back? Will he want to come back in the last year of his contract? So I think you're kind of looking at the games now. You're looking ahead. What's the future of the Bengals? The Browns obviously 0-10. They got a ton of draft choices, but will Hugh Jackson be the coach of the Browns next year? Will their front office staff still be running? There's rumors that the Browns owner is going after Peyton Manning. He wants Peyton Manning to run the franchise. So from that standpoint, kind of looking to the future in the offseason, there's it's an interesting matchup from that point. Not necessarily everything that's going on the field, but the Bengals are coming off a win over Denver. They can try to get some momentum going. Try to finish the season in a good fashion, and maybe they could get back in the playoff hunt. But to do that, they pretty much have to run the table.
Well, I hope you've had a happy Thanksgiving and that it continues throughout the weekend.
That's right. Plenty of great football to enjoy to go with those leftovers. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.